I would say pretty much any strategy that's going to help your child to learn a lesson or work through the tough emotions of what's going on only is going to work when you stay in the neutral zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same for this inoculation strategy. It only works from the neutral zone because as soon as you start pointing fingers at the other parent, at a friend, at that coach they really like, whoever it is, that kicks up defensiveness and you're never going to be able to have the conversation that you really want. Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hi there. Thanks for joining us today. We're betting that you might be moving through the back to school season pretty rapidly at this point. Mm-hmm. Now that can bring a flurry of activity, but maybe also kind of a sense of settling as you get back into routines. So whether you're celebrating kids getting back into routines or grieving the end of the summer fun, we are so glad that you've chosen to take the time to be with us today. And as we get started, we would love for you to take a moment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to give us a 5-star rating. Well, if that's really where you think we're bringing you value.
Yeah.
And we'd also love to hear from you if you have a few minutes to leave a review as well. Your feedback really does matter. It matters to us. It's so encouraging to us, but it also matters to others who are trying to find reliable resources to help them experience breakthroughs in their blended family too. So we would just love it if you would take a moment to do that. So with that, let's hop into today, honey. What are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about a really cool strategy. Now, one thing we've discovered over the years and through our own journey and through others that we've coached that can quickly stir up some confusion and conflict in our relationship is something that we call the wild card factor.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The wild card factor often involves an ex-spouse. I bet you didn't guess that.
Yeah.
And possibly their new partner in that other home as well, who may not share your values or parenting approaches.
Right.
Sometimes their influence can feel like a direct threat to the things that you're trying to instill in your kids. And when the other home has a different lifestyle or isn't focused on the same core values that you are, it can add tension to the already difficult task of raising responsible, respectful, resilient kids. And when those differences begin to show up in your children's behavior or attitudes, that can quickly ignite conflict between you and your current spouse, even creating some frustration and miscommunication, even chaos in your home.
We faced this wild card factor on more than one occasion over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from the time that my daughter was 2 years old, she moved between two very different homes.
Yep.
Her dad's lifestyle and my lifestyle were opposite at that point, and our parenting priorities couldn't have been more different. For example, her dad and his new wife were highly focused on material things. They often express love through excessive spending, clothing, expensive toys, anything Annika wanted. But in our home, we were committed to teaching her and our two younger kids the value of money and the importance of delayed gratification. Rather than giving them everything they wanted, we encouraged our kids to earn their own money and be able to buy those things for themselves.
Yep.
It was about responsibility, work ethic, and learning the satisfaction of achieving something through effort. Now, that difference in approach between the two homes created real tension for us in our home. Sometimes it felt like we were fighting an uphill battle against the other home's influence. Like our lessons about financial responsibility were being undone the minute Annika walked out our door and into that other home. Now, this is just one example. There were many others, and it felt really discouraging sometimes. Over the years, we had to remind ourselves that we weren't powerless in these situations. And that's what we want to encourage you with today. Even when values clash between households, there are healthy and effective ways to guide your kids and protect the peace in your home. So today we're focusing on how to cope with the differences between your children's two homes. Maybe you're concerned about priorities, values, or behaviors being modeled in the other home. You want to counteract those not so great influences and instill strong values and character traits in your kids. And we get it.
That's right.
And that's why we're sharing one of our favorite tools today, one that Ron Deal calls the inoculation strategy.
That's right. Now, before you can effectively put this strategy into action, we encourage you to stay focused on two realities. The first reality is that you cannot control the other home.
Right.
Trying to control or change or even attack what's happening in that other home actually isn't going to help. This is a waste of your energy, and honestly, it usually backfires.
Yeah.
It typically ends up eroding cooperation between the homes and sometimes can even kick off some loyalty issues with the kids. So if that's not going to work, what we want to do is instead redirect our energy towards something much better, staying focused on what you can control that's in your own home. And through consistency, you can teach and you can model values and character traits and life skills, all the good ones that you really want to instill into your kids. And you can do that through consistency and focus.
And by using this strategy, we're going to teach you in a few minutes.
That's right.
You know, when I was in recovery from addiction earlier in life, I learned something called the Serenity Prayer. And we can all embrace the wisdom of the Serenity Prayer.
That's right.
It starts with, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes, there is a difference, isn't there?
Right. In our home, we had to accept that my ex and his new wife had a different mindset around money and spending. We weren't going to change that. And it took some courage for us to stay focused on what we wanted to teach in our home and model the value of financial responsibility. We had to gain wisdom between what we could not change and what we were able to do and how we could make a difference for Annika's mindset around money and spending.
You know, thinking back, we didn't always do a great job on that either.
No.
Except we were able to model this to her in some small but meaningful ways. Like, as an example, I remember Annika's dad, their family tended to lean toward like bigger kind of, we might use the word extravagant vacations and end up spending quite a bit on that. But some of our most memorable times as a family for our home were some really inexpensive camping trips. Would you say that's true? Yeah. And we think over time that kind of gave Annika a clear picture of how you didn't actually have to spend a ton of money in order to create really meaningful experiences.
Right.
So we were trying to live out some of those values.
Yeah, we gave her a contrasting picture.
Exactly. So that first reality is that you cannot control the other home. What's the second reality, honey?
The second reality is that you can't protect your kids from every negative influence. Trying to become a barrier between your child and their other parent is unrealistic and usually isn't the best approach. Unless your kids experience abuse or neglect in their other home, your attempts to separate them can easily backfire.
Definitely.
Kids may feel resentment towards you, and your relationship with them will typically suffer over time. You just can't protect them from every negative influence.
Yeah. So rather than focusing on protecting them from all those influences. Instead, we want to find healthy ways to influence your kids during the time that they're with you. Mm-hmm. The truth is, your kids will inevitably be exposed to negative influences somewhere, at school, through social media, even in your own neighborhood at times. Mm-hmm. And practically speaking, you're not going to be able to protect them from every one of those negative influences. No. However, if you're really consistent and intentional with the wisdom and the guidance that you want to provide, then that's going to help actually train your kids to withstand all kinds of not so great influences that they're going to inevitably encounter, even beyond what they experienced in that other home.
Right. So before we dive in, I just want to point out that today's conversation connects to, but is also distinct from episode 207, where we tackled 4 common myths about parenting when your ex has different rules. That episode unpacked the kinds of beliefs that can easily confuse or distract us. Like, to make things easier for everyone, our house rules need to match the ex's.
That's actually a myth. Or we'll just need to lower our standards to appease the kids, or else they might reject our home or refuse to spend time with us.
Right. Another myth. Here's one I really struggled with. We don't have the authority to impose healthy limits around items that my ex purchased.
Also a myth.
Such as cell phones.
And another myth is I can't influence my kids because my time with them is so limited.
Right. So back in episode 207, we addressed each of these myths head on and offered truth-based perspectives to help you parent with confidence in your home. We also shared ways to communicate effectively with your ex around differing rules and expectations so that you can foster more consistency and collaboration between homes and reduce conflict in the process. So we'll link to that episode in the show notes, especially if those myths are still shaping how you parent. But for today, we're zeroing in on how you can counteract negative influences your kids may be exposed to in the other home. It's a unique strategy, different from what we share in episode 207, but it falls into kind of the same category, teaching, guiding, and building positive character traits in your kids, even when that's not happening on the other side.
That's right. And we're going to be doing that by using the inoculation strategy, which gives you something you can do. And it works without bad-mouthing or criticizing anyone in the other home. This strategy helps to keep things emotionally safe for your kids and preserves the co-parenting dynamic. Now, we first learned this from Ron Deal, who shares it in his book, The Smart Step Family. He calls it inoculating your kids, and it works just like a vaccine. You introduce a small, controlled exposure to a negative concept with guidance so your kids can build up a resistance to that negative value or concept when they inevitably face it in real life.
And this can be used to counteract anything: dishonesty, irresponsibility, entitlement, unhealthy life choices, harmful cultural messages, toxic friendships, even mismanagement of money, like we talked about earlier.
That's right.
Now, it starts with your awareness. You can watch for relatable examples in everyday life. You can draw from movies, books, athletes, performers, a public figure, or YouTuber, really anywhere. And what you're looking for are specific examples that zero in on the character trait you want to instill. Whether that's negative or positive, you can use examples to engage in a teaching moment that will help inoculate your child.
So we're looking around in our culture to identify and be aware of, oh, there's like a really great example of something I'm trying to instill in my child, or there's a really great example of the opposite of something that I'm trying to instill in my child. Is that right?
Yep. And
Okay.
We're going to use that to teach.
Okay. Say a little more.
So let's just use dishonesty as an example, because that's also one that we faced.
Sure.
My ex-spouse is someone who naturally tends to bend the truth to get what he wants. Now, we wanted to inoculate Annika against dishonesty. So we made it a point to call out a character in a movie who had lied and then lost the trust of the people that they cared about. And you can also point out positive examples, such as someone who was truthful even when it was hard. You can use both examples, and you just stop the movie, or at the end of the movie, you talk about it. Don't shy away from using personal examples as well. Kids love this when you share your own personal examples of a time when you either didn't do a great job living out a value and then you learned a really tough lesson. Or when someone hurt you by violating some of these values that you're trying to instill.
Okay, so you probably understand as you're listening, like, okay, I can probably point out some of these examples, both positive and negative, but what do I do with that? Right? It can be really confusing.
How do I use it?
That sounds great, but how do I actually do it? Well, what we want to start with is focusing on engaging the emotion behind the lesson you want to teach. So Kim was just talking about, watching a movie where someone told a lie. Here's a great question to ask a child. How do you think that person felt when they discovered that they were lied to? You see how we're talking about the feelings that are actually underneath the action that we witnessed. We're trying to draw that out and connect the child to the person that really was violated because of poor behavior from somebody else.
Yeah, kind of the outcome.
Then we want to personalize it. So we engage the emotion and then we personalize it. And that's really simple. You just ask a question that connects them to it. Well, how would you feel if someone that you trusted lied to you like that? You see how, one, I'm engaging the emotion and connecting them with what they see. And then two, I'm personalizing it and asking a question that really connects it with themselves. Right. And then you might move in almost to like a problem solving focus to ask something like, what do you think it would take for the person who lied to earn back trust? And how do you think they felt after losing trust, right? We still can keep with the emotions and whatnot, but also we're kind of pointing to, oh man, there's some hard work that has to go into doing something new in order to repair that violation.
Yeah, there's a consequence here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we want to engage the emotion. We want to personalize it with the child. And then we want to also ask some questions that might get them to think, man, this is going to be work to fix that problem.
Yeah, we're opening up some conversation.
Absolutely.
And then we want to reinforce the positive value using a neutral approach.
I love that.
So this is where we just talk about the benefits that come from developing good character, from living a life of integrity and honesty. You know, how great it feels to be considered a trustworthy person when people believe you.
Yeah.
And the key is to keep it neutral. Instead of referencing the other parent, we want to use phrases like, some people believe that bending the truth is okay. Or others might think it's all right to lie.
Yeah.
But in our home, being trustworthy is important. And that's why we want to be honest with each other, even when it might be hard.
I love that.
You can also share with your kids why this is so important for their future and what it means to be a person of high integrity and trustworthy and why they want that.
Yeah. What a powerful way to frame all of that, because like you said, it's a neutral approach. We're not pointing at other people in their life. Now, I know we've kind of talked a little bit about the ex here, but we're also not pointing at people like their friends.
Right.
Oh, you know, that friend you hang out with, they're really dishonest. No. We're just saying, hey, you know what? Some people believe this, but here's what we believe.
Yeah, we're doing it in a way that helps the child to really think it through for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, we're engaging that emotion, trying to dig under the surface. We're helping them personalize it of, oh, how would you feel about that? And what kind of work would have to go into repairing that? And then we're coming up out of the weeds like Kim just shared, from a neutral approach to talk about the principle or the value itself. So along the way, in regular old everyday life, we're simply looking for natural opportunities to engage in conversations like this. Let's draw from a different example. Maybe in the other home, your kids aren't encouraged to do hard things. Like it's okay for them to quit the team or drop out of that challenging class or give up on developing a new skill. You could take advantage of a natural opportunity like, I don't know, watching the Olympics with the kids to initiate an inoculation conversation. You can talk about the perseverance and hard work while watching athletes compete, right? It's really great when they go, wow, that was cool. Or you see them somehow respond to somebody's performance, somebody's competition there, and then ask, hey, what do you think it takes to accomplish something hard like that? Or how do you think that feels to achieve a dream like that?
Yeah.
Right? And really be able to again, tap into those emotions. And then you could even ask a personalizing question. What is it that you want to achieve in life? And start to turn it toward them, right?
What
See how that
steps
works?
do you think it would take?
Yeah. This isn't hard, but it definitely takes some awareness.
And intention.
Yeah. And again, Kim, you mentioned earlier kind of personal stories. You could share some of your own stories about sticking with something hard and achieving a goal that you're really proud of. Or the opposite, how maybe you quit something prematurely and you look back with some regret, right? And so it's really just these everyday moments. I think the hardest part in all this is staying in that place of awareness. That was the first step, right? Being aware of, okay, what is it that we want to instill and what's going on around me right now that we can point to, right?
Yeah. All of this is about staying neutral and avoiding bad mouthing.
Yeah.
Okay. You never want to say anything that directly attacks the character of the other home.
Absolutely.
Like I never said to my daughter, your dad is a liar. You never want to say anything like, man, your stepmom sure is lazy.
You might want to say it.
Yeah. You
Just
might
to be
want
clear.
to. Yeah.
But please don't. Yeah.
Yeah. And why is this important? Because your kids actually internalize these messages and it can cause confusion. It can actually damage their own self-esteem and force loyalty binds between the homes. You don't want that.
Yeah.
Even if your kids express hurt or confusion about the other home, focus on their experience and their emotions. Don't use it as an opportunity to badmouth that other home.
That's right.
I remember one time my daughter came to me and said, she was really hurting. And she said, Daddy makes me some promises, but then he doesn't ever do those things. And instead of capitalizing and saying, well, that's because your dad's full of hot air, I mean, man, there were lots of things I wanted to say. But instead of that, I just focused on her emotions and just showed some empathy. Oh, I'm really sorry, honey. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, absolutely.
And just allowed her to have the space to process her own emotions.
Yeah, also another time where you don't want to capitalize on that.
Right.
And, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I would say pretty much any strategy that's going to help your child to learn a lesson or work through the tough emotions of what's going on only is going to work when you stay in the neutral zone. That's the same for this inoculation strategy. It only works from the neutral zone because as soon as you start pointing fingers at the other parent, at a friend, at that coach they really like, whoever it is, that kicks up defensiveness and you're never going to be able to have the conversation that you really want.
Yeah, it puts them in a position of having to figure out who's right and who's wrong and who do I choose. And that's the last place we want our kids to be. Instead,
you want to let them connect the dots. Trust them to observe and evaluate as they grow and mature over time. It's amazing to me in our empty nest season that we're in right now, how many lessons our kids actually learned and they can actually repeat them back to us today. It blows my mind because you're probably listening and going, well, you don't understand. They don't listen to me. It goes in one ear and out the other. Yeah, it did with our kids too. So we thought. until we now get to the other side and see them processing what they actually experienced through their childhood.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you, keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. Mm-hmm.
And, the bottom line is there are no guarantees with kids. Sometimes kids will take the easy path or they will follow the negative influence of the other parent.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that you have failed. Kids grow, they reflect, they learn from their mistakes, and they eventually see things for what they are.
That's right.
When hard life lessons and real consequences hit, that's often when kids begin to consider what they really want for themselves and start to make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
The older kids get, the more they compare their parental influences and decide who they want to become. So don't lose hope. Continue to initiate those inoculation conversations with your kids and offer them lots of grace as they learn and grow.
Absolutely.
We saw this with my daughter, Annika. For quite a while, she was emulating her dad's lifestyle and made some painful choices.
Yep.
But over time, she began to embrace the values we modeled in our home, even around money management, believe it or not.
Yep.
The inoculations were still with her, even when it seemed like they just weren't working. So hang in there. Don't give up. If the other home isn't modeling the values and character you hope your kids will embrace, it's even more crucial that you stay the course and provide a clear, consistent, and contrasting example for them. The inoculation strategy is a long-term approach that little by little helps to influence and teach children without crossing the line of bad-mouthing or attacking the other home.
Yeah. Yeah. Use the inoculation strategy to lead your kids intentionally, not by attacking the other home. I know we've talked a lot about that, but by focusing on what you can do. Mm-hmm. You get to model and teach values through relatable examples and stories, and you can highlight the emotions by engaging in those ongoing conversations. And remember, even when your kids seem to be influenced by something or someone else, your voice, your example, and your values matter a lot more than you think.
Absolutely.
So as a quick recap, you want to be aware of the examples that are swirling around you. Some are great examples of those values that you want to instill. Some are the opposite of those values. Be aware of what's going on.
You can use them.
Exactly. So you can use them. Then you want to engage those emotions. Man, how do you think that person felt when that thing happened to them? Then you want to personalize it. How would you feel if that thing happened to you? And then you want to turn toward action. Man, what would it take for them to fix that problem or fix the poor mistake that they made?
Or achieve that goal or whatever it is that you're inoculating around.
And then finally, you can get up above it and talk about the value or the principle that you really want to engage in. You know, some people believe this, but in our home, we believe this. And we just do that in everyday life and make it a part of everyday conversation. And I am convinced that you'll be amazed at what you experience on the other side as kids launch out into adulthood.
At the beginning of today's discussion, we mentioned how the differences between homes often tend to show up in your children's behaviors or attitudes when they're with you. And that can quickly ignite some conflict between you and your current partner, creating some frustration, miscommunication, even chaos in your home. If that sounds familiar, you are not alone.
Yeah.
This is a common place where blended couples get stuck, but you don't have to stay stuck there. Join us in 2 weeks to discover how you can align your parenting goals, set clear expectations, and lead your family as a united team, regardless of how the other home operates.
That's right. We have gotten to help so many couples build a healthy, effective parenting partnership and create some peaceful cooperation in their home. So you don't really want to miss that.
No.
And you don't want to miss our simple step next week either. So make sure you're following the show so that you can catch that. Hey, go practice the inoculation strategy this week.
Yeah.
And we're going to make today a wrap.
Until next time.